Okay, good morning, good morning. Let's see, adjust the camera a little bit. Hope everybody's able to get on. We had some trouble with the link. I wish I could just invite people right from here. Let's try. Okay, I'm going to send this new link. I can't say it's a new link. I'm going to send this link of what I'm on today. I don't know where the challenge has been getting on. And so we'll just keep trying, keep plugging away. So I'm going to put in the group sessions. That should be the new link. Well, again, I don't know that it's a new link. But, okay, I'm putting it in the chat. Group sessions, online. Should be the same one every time. So let's try this as an updated one. Maybe it'll be the same one everybody else has been accessing, maybe not. But there is the link anyway. So if you're watching this on replay and you want to join next week, I would go to the broadcast from today. It says group sessions link for 10/3. And yeah, see if we can't hit that link and try to join on. But let me know if you're trying to join and you're having trouble, because we definitely want to get you on and chatting with us. So, okay, let's get into business. Pulling up all of our group forms, and thank you so much for filling those out. It's gotten to be kind of a fun game for me in the mornings and the day before when I'm getting ready for our groups. I'm like, what is everybody going to talk about today? So first we're going to go over just some of the positive things and the things going well. We've had reports of better bowel movements, less bloating, less cramping, feeling like you're getting caught up at work, feeling energetic, diet has been more consistent, reminding myself that there are only certain things I can control. Absolutely. It should not matter what others say, but it does. I know that still bothers us. But I'm talking things out and allowing it to release. I know me, I know my situation. That's a really good perspective to have. The longer that I live and the longer that I do this work, the more that I can understand it. Really, so much of it has to be let go and let God and know thyself, because so much of it is illusion. So much of it is the stuff that we create with our emotions and our perceptions. And more likely than not, people are not intending on going out and being mean and evil and hurting people. They're dealing with their own stuff too. So once we understand, and inevitably, if you found this out too, you start talking to somebody, all of a sudden you can understand their perspective, and then the whole situation just kind of resolves. So know thyself, know thyself, know thyself. Yay, the link must be working. Ding dong. Hello, hello. Good to have you. Oh, good, it worked. I'm so glad, Trixie. Fun to see you. Awesome. You can feel free to stay on mute, but then take yourself off mute so that you can join in the conversation at any point. If it gets too much feedback in the background, then we'll just keep everybody on mute and then do the whole raise your hand thing and whatnot. So other challenge or other good things, celebrations that are happening, water drinking, better relationship with my husband, feeling of more communication. So exciting, very exciting. Love to have those celebrations. And again, we're always going to go with celebrations first, because we have been trained to identify what's wrong. Always, it's always what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong. Can I define what's wrong with me? And I want to change our thinking a little bit into what's going right with me. We know there's challenges. There's always going to be challenges. But if we start with gratitude and satisfaction, just my personal thinking that we'll be able to keep changing those neural pathways. Okay, some challenges that are happening this week, struggling with headaches. I do have a headache training that we're going to be doing today. So we're going to get into that. Easily irritated by everyday things, lower back pain with the walking routine. Let's see, continuing to work, but overall nothing new. Food intake is good. Ooh, someone tried some ramen noodles. Ramen is just one of those things, probably because of the high sodium. It's got such a food addiction to it. So if you are on a specific plan where it's dairy-free or gluten-free, be very cautious about what you're adding in. And she says, I'm still waiting for the after effects of it. If you know there's after effects, oh dear one. So let's talk about why the addiction to that, why the craving of that. I would ask yourself that question. And then movement continues to be a challenge. Okay, so let's see, shopping tips. I love, somebody also was mentioning wanting to have some tips for shopping. I'm going to keep this on our list. The suggestion was, I'd be curious to see mine and some of the other coaches' pantries, refrigerators, or shopping carts. What are our staples? What are our shopping standards? Tips to stay on budget and not buy unnecessary foods or supplements. That is a great question. We were actually talking about this in our team meeting last week or the week before. So we were talking about building and putting out some videos and things about some grocery shopping and reading labels and how we eat and whatnot. If you don't know, go to our Facebook group. It's Food FX. I think it's just called Food FX Facebook group. And that's where I've typically done more on recipes and food specific things. So you might find some good information there. I know at one point I had posted a picture of my fridge. I just opened up the fridge doors and that's what my fridge typically looks like. Okay, let's see. Joy. What is my joy? So we're going to have migraine training and we're going to, well, not just migraine, headache training in general. We're going to talk about cold and flu supplements, things to have on hand. And then we'll see how many of these we can get into, but we're going to do, I guess I'm going to call it a joy training. It's so common for women, especially. I don't like to gender stereotype, but it seems that the more female presence that we have, the more that they're struggling with knowing themselves, giving themselves permission to know what they want, getting to have a choice, getting to have a say in their life. They're so, especially for those that have been wives and parents, it's so much about giving out to everybody else that it's hard to allow yourself to come back and even know who it is that you are, what it is that you want, the things you enjoy doing, what you want the rest of your life to look like after this point. I can't tell you how many times this is a challenge when I'm sitting with a woman and we're going over, if your life is not a 10 of a 10, what is it? And it usually comes down to joy. Like it or not, that typically comes down to value and worth. So we'll do some concept work here too at the end. Okay, let's get into it. So first things first, cold and flu, things to have in your medicine cabinet. That was one of the questions of support today. First of all, let's think about our concepts behind cold and flu. We've talked a little bit about this before, and so I want to make sure that you're addressing your concepts about it. You can get any kind of sickness all throughout the year. Just because it's getting colder weather, just because we're outside less, just because it's less vitamin D, less sunshine time, less outside time does not mean that you're going to get a cold or a flu. Just because they're talking about COVID does not mean that we're going to have another round of COVID. The best things that we can do is put our positive intentions on causing health. We're going to do the things that our bodies like us to do to feel healthy. When we do come down with something, it's just a really good sign that your body needed some rest, some recovery, some joy, some fun, some laughter, some new nutrients. It needed something, just like any other symptom. It's a sign that your body needs some downtime. And you can mimic nature in this. We can look outside and we can see nature definitely takes its downtime. We live in a culture where productivity is king. And so from the second, not even from the second we wake up, it starts in the nighttime when we're up and we're anxious and we're worried about the next day. It starts right from the get-go, what we should be doing, what we should be doing, what we should be doing, what we should be doing. Oh, I'm taking a break, I'm sitting down, but what should I be doing? What should I be doing? What should I be doing? This is incredibly burdensome to your nervous system, which ultimately is going to respond negatively to your immune system. So much so, it's not because we're just prone to catching germs from people. It's more because our presence, our body was prime and ripe and ready to receive something like a flu, a bacteria, a virus. So keep your mind on the idea of causing health. I want us to get so much about where we live in a world where, looking towards health and joy and happiness is more the norm in our life. It's more normal to be healthy. It's more normal to be happy. And it's easy to do that when we go out to entertainment and we go out to restaurants. So we're changing the world just by having conversations. When you do get sick, remember, it's a programming for your nervous system and for your immune system. It's not a bad thing to get sick. In fact, I would want to get sick because it's the body's way of adapting and growing. So we do need to get sick from time to time. So the first time you feel a little run down, say, oh, thank you. This is just my opportunity to take a rest. And then don't let your mind go to the places that say it's dangerous and it's terrible. Just think, awesome. This is like, this is sixth season 101, 201. I'm getting an upgrade. You can tell yourself that it's time for my upgrade or my update. Is that what a computer does? It updates. Yeah. Time for my update. That's all it is. You can do things. You don't necessarily want to stop the cold or flu. Morning. You don't want to necessarily stop the cold or flu. You want to be prepared to support the body's natural ways of dealing with it. And you want to support symptoms so that we don't feel as awful. So I always talk about kind of the 5 that I keep in my medicine cabinet. And I would love if every single person had these 5 supplements, because then when you're calling and you're like, I'm sick and I don't know what to do, and you can't get to a pharmacy and they're not going to have them, at a Walgreens anyway, and we're closed or it's after hours or whatever it is, I can't really do much to help, especially if we don't want to use over-the-counter things. So the things that I love to have in my oregano cabinet, in my medicine cabinet, I'm holding this as a demo. This is oregano iodine. This is not the same thing. It's what we want to have is oregano oil. Now, it is not Young Living. It is not doTERRA. It is not an essential oil. I'm very particular about the brands that I use. So we use Joy of the Mountains oregano oil. I have that in my cabinet all the time. And then I will have a homeopathic for bacteria combo. I will have a homeopathic for viral combo. We have all kinds of homeopathic supports for various symptoms. We have one for sinuses. We have one for respiratory. We have one for cough. We have one for headache. We have one for fever. There's some available for every kind of symptom that you could possibly have. Cough, bronchial cough, strep. There's just so many of them. You can definitely have the ones that you are typically prone to. If you know that you get a sinus infection every year, you might want to have the sinus homeopathic on hand. But the ones that I definitely have on hand are the bacterial combo and the viral combo, because you aren't going to know if it's a bacteria or a virus that you're dealing with. And typically by the time you go to the doctor, that's what they say. It's a virus, you just have to wait it out. So if we start feeling sick, I'll start taking these at the normal dose. It's 10 drops 3 times a day. And I use both of them because then I'm giving my body support against anything that it has to defend. I take the oregano oil because oregano has natural antibiotic properties. For people that don't do well with antibiotics, we typically have to look to nature and earth and herbs and things that have natural antibiotic properties on their own. Just so you know, that it does not mean that you always need the pharmaceutical treatment. It might mean that you need to take care of your symptoms, you need to take care of your issue, but there are plenty of things that also have natural antibiotic properties, and oregano oil is that's my go-to. That's the one that I see work the most effectively. I will also get the 4th one that I'll have. It's called upper respiratory, so it's similar to this one. Upper respiratory staph strep. That's one that I will typically get, just because in our family, strep has been kind of, that's kind of been the thing that we tend more towards strep than we tend towards ear infections. So you can get one that if you tend towards ear infections, you can get one if you tend towards sinuses. I tend towards that one just because I don't like it moving to the throat and moving down into the lungs. So I just take some supports that are going to propel my immune system. It's not treating an infection. None of them are treating an infection. They're all supporting the body's innate knowledge of how to deal with symptoms of this and keep the tissues functioning well, keep the cells moving, nutrients moving, sodium, potassium through their membranes, being able to move fluids. So those are all just supports for what the body naturally acts like. The fifth one that I have always in my medicine cabinet is Smart Silver. So Smart Silver, it's a colloidal silver, but the name of the one we use is Smart Silver, simply because the parts per million, the particles are so small, they can actually get into the cell and do the work that we want them to do. Smart Silver is, like I said, it's a colloidal silver, and you don't have to know if it's viral, bacteria, you don't have to know what the type of pathogen is. It's just a good support for the immune system. So between those five, that's what I typically support my family with. I have them in a little bag, and then if we go anywhere, I just grab my little bag, put them in my first aid kit, because then if we're on a trip and we're far away and I don't have my medicine kit, now I'm going to have to resort to things like over-the-counter supports, and if I don't want to do that, then I want to be prepared. So I just kind of keep it simple to those five, and then keep them in my little bag. Like I said, you can have all the symptom relievers. You can have them on your medicine cabinet. I just feel like the basic functioning of the body is what I typically support. Then I don't have to think about having the right one with me wherever I am. So, and my kids, don't know about your kids, but they tend to move around a lot. We've got a lot of activity and things that they're doing. So I like to have my little grab and go kit. Okay, hopefully that is very helpful. I'm going to also clue you in. We don't have it at the office, but it's still one of my favorites. It's a long one. It's called oscillococcinum. It's OSCIL. So just look up that OSCIL. I'm sure the rest will fill in. Oscillococcinum, and it is a homeopathic that is really helpful if you notice that you're starting to feel cold and flu-like symptoms, and you take it right away within the first 8 hours of feeling like that. Oftentimes you can kind of stave it off or give your body that boost that it needs. So it's not one that we have, and I don't keep that in our first aid kit, but it is one that is very helpful, very handy. You can get that one just even at Walgreens. So that is a good, helpful one. Okay, as far as needing support this week, somebody asked about wanting to know yoga poses or stretches for GI support and neck and shoulder strain. And for you, particular person, you're going to be getting these in your upcoming exercise assessments. And then all of the therapies that you do, just so you know, are all of the therapies, especially in the B sessions, are tended towards working the parasympathetic system. So the parasympathetic is one that it's kind of like the psoas muscle. Those two that we support are supported by the non-doing. So we'll explain a little bit more about that, but the parasympathetic is the I don't want to call it non-active because it's very active, but it's not meant to be actively defending. It doesn't have an offense. It doesn't have a defense plan. It's what the natural is. It's what your natural system should be. So it doesn't have a particular offense or defense plan. It doesn't have a particular, how do I build this? It's more, how do I reduce the use of the fight or flight system, the immobilized nervous systems, so that my parasympathetic is the one that is utilized. So it's not so much how do I build this one. It's more, how do I decrease this one and then build resiliency so that this is my natural state. And so in your exercise assessment, Definitely ask Gina to give you particular poses or stretches for GI support and neck and shoulder strain. She'll have some good ideas for you there. If you do not get, I'll keep it on our list here. So if you don't get your answers met, or you bring it up again, or other people are bringing it up again, we'll put it in as a possible training that we'll do right here on the groups. Okay, let's see. I'm going to get into the headache training simply because all of, I know replays, we're going to have men and women on the replay. Everybody that filled out their form this week was all female. So we're going to talk to that population that was asking these kinds of questions. And so we're going to talk about headaches because it does tend to be more of a female over male population. And it's just because we have so many other factors, contributing factors that can bring about headaches. So the biggest thing to understand about headaches, whether they be tension headaches or cluster headaches or migraine headaches, the biggest thing is there are so many layers to headaches. There isn't just one answer. There isn't one solve-it-all answer. But it is very important to address the potential layers. And what I typically find is once we address a main layer, it'll reduce headaches to an extent, or a new form of headache. Like we'll reduce these kinds of headaches, but then what's left is these kind of headaches, or the duration or the frequency of them will decrease. I always start everybody on an anti-inflammatory lifestyle and diet because so much is related to nerve and muscle tension. And so it's not just about relaxing those muscles. Certainly massage can help, certainly chiropractic can help, certainly trigger point therapy can help, and acupressure can help. If you find that you're stressed and you're carrying your stress in your neck and shoulders, and you are typically, gonna be walking around like this and you don't even realize it, yeah, that can be definitely a big part of why you might end up with headaches. However, that same effect, that same tightening, that same tensing of the muscles oftentimes can happen from within. You can have the inflammation, the tension that's coming from internal stress, just as much as you can have it coming from external stress. Excuse me. And so, especially with headaches, we always look to the outside in. What is the outside stressor? What is the outside factor that's making me have the headache? What are the outside things that I can take that are going to make the headache go away? And a headache is a big sign of letting you know that there are internal things that need to be dealt with. And it's one of the illnesses that, or symptoms, that it doesn't separate emotion from physical. So that's kind of the interesting thing with headaches. There usually always is some concept or some emotion that goes with it. So the first thing is rule out any of that external physical body tension and learn to address if you're carrying your stress in those muscles. Do some modalities like we talked about, massage, chiropractic. But if we do an anti-inflammatory internally, you're going to reduce the stress and tension of the muscles on the inside. What I notice of the stress and tension of the muscles on the inside is inflammatory foods, a diet that is too high in inflammatory, processed, or sodium-rich foods. Sorry about those ramen noodles, but they're included in that one. And hormones. Hormones will also cause inflammation in the muscles. And so you'll feel just kind of run down. That's estrogen will do that to us. So start with the physical, moving in. Now let's apply foods with anti-inflammatory. Your biggest anti-inflammatory food, or your biggest inflammatory foods, are dairy, sugar, and grains. So get out your food function chart and tally again and pay attention. How many tallies are you having in the congester column? Congester, remember, congester is inflammatory. Inflammatory is headache. So usually it's that congester column that carries all of our answers when it comes to symptoms that are related to food. So I'll always start people off on an anti-inflammatory diet because we need to get inflammation down. Is it just inflammation that's either coming from an outside source or from an inside source? And then we see what kind of reduction that we have from that. If we're still having headaches from that, We see it, maybe they've reduced in some severity, maybe they've reduced in frequency, but then we look to the next level. The next level is typically things like detox. So we want to make sure that the detox organs are working well. And so liver is going to be heavily related in that. Lymph is going to be heavily related in that. We want to make sure that you're detoxing, because if you can't detox, you're going to be storing toxins, and toxins are a huge inflammatory thing that will keep your nerves on fire and your muscles tense. You will also need to be able to detox your hormones. Estrogen needs to be able to detox from the body. And so liver is incredibly important for that. You can take liver supplements. Your therapies and your programs are working on some of that so that you can detox and serve your liver and lymph well. If you don't have this book, I highly would recommend that. It's on our shelves. 5 + 1 = 0 is because you have 5 physical eliminative systems and 1 emotional eliminative system, so that you can support your eliminative pathways. Each one of these chapters is for a particular eliminative system. So, chapter 1 might be on liver. And so you can pick and do everything that sounds good to you to support liver detox. You can, if your issue is lymph, you can go to the chapter that is just for lymphatic. And you can do as many of those support therapies. These are all things you can do at home. So you might be interested in that book. Once we know that detox is happening and that you are successfully able to eliminate toxins, we also look at what toxins are you exposed to, what toxins are coming into your life on a regular basis. I cannot tell you how many headaches come down to being from conventional hair, makeup, personal care products, home cleaning products, colognes, and perfumes. You will notice on our sign, I'm sure all of you have seen it, we are a fragrance-free area because we work with so many people that are sensitive or have allergies or have migraines or have neurology triggers or neurology symptoms. And so we keep fragrances out of the picture because it is such a trigger. We want to, I remember when we were kind of the house to be at for all of our teenagers. And so the friends would come over, and it would be a horrifying mix of all of the Axe and, the colognes, and they're in their dating ages, 14, 16. They're just wanting to, attract the opposite and find their mate. And oh, it's terrible. The house would just be awful with all of these riddled perfumes and colognes and hair products. And anyway, so what you're around is a big factor. You might want to start taking a look at how frequently you're around colognes and perfumes. They are one of those hidden things that can definitely be a cause of migraine. We have a panel of our self-study. It's not something that we do in program, but our additional cell panels are $25 to $45. So if ever we're talking about something that makes sense to you, you might want to ask at your next coaching session if you could have a panel that would make sense. So for this one, we have a migraine trigger panel. So whether it's headaches or migraines, it will help us to look at what are some of the triggers, because there are additional triggers, like cologne might be on there. It might be cleaner products. It might be laundry soaps. But then there are definitely some causative triggers that are little ingredients in foods. And it's hard to identify what those are, because most of the time people don't even realize that these triggers could be from their foods. And if they do, they're eating them so routinely within each other that they can't really pinpoint what one food is causing things. So a migraine trigger can help us look at things like MSG. MSG is a huge trigger. Sorry, again, those ramen noodles, that's a migraine trigger. Sodium can be a migraine trigger. Chocolate, peanuts, dairy, cheese, anything fermented, wine. There are some people that have high histamine levels, and so any histamine foods can be migraine triggers. If you tend towards sinusitis, if you tend towards postnasal drip, if you tend towards sinus infections, if you tend towards seasonal allergies, and you tend towards headaches, it's a very good chance that you have a histamine response that could be causing migraines or headaches in general. And so you might want to have that headache trigger panel done so you can see what some of your triggers are. Histamine products. So histamine is natural in the body. It is created inside the body to defend against something that it's allergic to, that the body's allergic to, but we can do that in excess and overkill, and we can also reject our own histamine production. And so you can easily start looking at histamine foods. So histamine foods are going to be anything fermented. So anything that's cultured, like yogurt, kimchi, kombucha, anything fermented, sauerkraut, fermented vegetables. It's also going to be cheese because cheese is fermented, wine is fermented. You easily can Google a list of histamine-rich foods and maybe do a histamine-free diet and see how you feel. If you are prone towards seasonal allergies, that's kind of a big clue. Then we've got hormonal headaches. I call them moon cycle migraines. Hormonal headaches are going to be so related to estrogen, but not just estrogen. It'll be the imbalance of perhaps not enough progesterone to balance out the estrogen. Both could be deficient, and you still could be estrogen dominant because one still is higher than the other. For those of you that are cycling, the headaches that you have during your period are going to mean different things also. So if you get a headache the days before your cycle or the first day or two of your cycle, that's going to be the change in progesterone to estrogen. Your estrogen is going to be higher, and it typically is an estrogen-related headache for that. If you have a headache towards the end of your cycle, that is going to be more a mineral deficiency by that point, mineral and dehydration. So how we would work with those headaches are two very different things. So we kind of have to work through the process, all those layers that I just talked about, work through them so that you can get down to the true culprits for yourself. So like I said, the biggest things that you can do is work on your foods, because your intake is going to be a big part of it. And then work on your environment, because you're exposed to chemicals that are clogging the lymph, clogging the liver. You could be allergic to some of the chemicals. You could be having neurological triggers from some of the chemicals. And guess what? None of those are good anyway. We wouldn't want those toxic chemicals in our environment anyway. The fact that you're having headaches to them, that's a big clue that your body says, get these out of here. So you can do A8 in your program session. You guys will talk about toxic product inventory. You might really want to go through your house and take that seriously. We also do ANMC Home is a home visit. It's a home study where we come and we can help with that. We look through the pantry. We look through chemicals. We see what the living situation is like. We see how much off-gassing there could be from, what is in the home space, what your filtration is like, what your air quality is like. We also will bring in a Gauss meter because it tests EMFs. That is kind of that final layer of what we would look at for what could be causing headaches. I remember we did a home study once, and right over her bed where she slept on her side, the Gauss meter was pegged at its highest, just such a high pitch noise. And they had all of their plugins and outlets directly underneath her side of the bed. Sometimes I've seen, we had an infant that was acting in pain. We moved the crib from one side of the room to the other because we identified the Gauss meter it pegged itself, and we found there was an unused electrical box behind the sheetrock. So there definitely can be electrical influences, EMF influences that can be causing that too. But again, that's kind of a downline thing that we would do. But if you have kind of worked through your layers and you can't figure out the headaches, especially if you've gone through your program and you're kind of like at the B13 session where you're in between the B and the C sessions, that might be a good time. If you haven't had any relief from headaches, it might be time to have a home study done, or to do yourself, work through some of those toxic product inventory, do the migraine panel, have the Gauss reading on your house so that you can see if there's something coming in your home environment. It might also be helpful to just kind of document, when are you feeling the headaches? What makes them worse? What makes them better? Do you recognize feeling better or worse after seeing certain people, or before or after work, or before going a place or two? There's so much emotional relationship to headaches also. Headaches are literally the squeeze of life. They are literally the pressures that we feel in life. It is a great time to take a look at, are you loving your life? Because inflammation is one of the biggest signs that you're just really not loving your life. And I think we have to get to the point where we have to admit, we've had to pretend and pretend and pretend and pretend and pretend that everything's fine. We have all these social media images out there that everything's fine. Look at my life. Look at my life. I'm so great. It's great. It's great. So we all feel like that's how we're supposed to be, that's what life is supposed to look like. And it just really is not. More people are feeling dissatisfied with their life probably than ever before. And yet we haven't had the biggest challenges. We didn't have, think about World War II and the Great Depression. They had some real struggles there. We have the struggles of our time, but there's still joy to be had, and there's still learning to be had, and there's still growth to be had through that. And so if you're not feeling in love with your life, this is the time where you start giving yourself permission. You have value just like everybody else. We've typically used that character trait to put everybody else before us, which is great. It's a great character trait to have. And it's great if you can lovingly do that. But if you're feeling unhappy with your life, chances are very good that you are not lovingly putting other people before you. So you might want to regroup, know yourself, get yourself back in alignment with yourself so that you can be more loving with when you're serving out to other people, that you're doing it really from a place of love, and that you're not weakening yourself, you're not depleting your energy reserves even more. So coming down to that, what brings joy? And for every person identifying that, it's going to be different. But I would take you back to the possibility stage of teenagehood, or even younger, when anything was possible. You literally said, I want to be a princess when I grow up. And you had no doubt that that was going to happen. Or as a teenager, and everybody's telling you, you can go to any college that you want to, you can be anything that you want to be. Go back to that time of what was it that I thought was going to be possible for me? Because over time, we've just narrowed our box to where our experience of life is quite limited. And it's time to open that back up again. So more so than knowing what you want to be when you grow up, what's going to bring you joy, it's more about it's more about being in that state of possibility. So sometimes if you're like, I don't know what brings me joy, I don't know what I'm going to enjoy doing, I don't know where to go next, just getting yourself in a place of possibility. So start creating something. Maybe it's just going to the store and getting a big canvas and some paint, and you don't know what you're going to create with it, and it doesn't really matter. Just start going with the emotions of it and let yourself be free with it, and just create. Just allow creation to happen. Just allow possibility to happen. The more you spend time in a creative place, the more you're going to be turning on those pathways in your brain where you're going to get in a possible state. And when you're possible, things start opening up to you. And now you start seeing things of joy. We're not going to start seeing joy if we stay doing the same habits, the same little boxed in things that we've been doing every day, to control our lives and to keep ourselves on track. We may have to open up a little spontaneity and try something that we haven't done before. I'm going to leave you with a funny movie idea. Go watch Yes Man. In Yes Man, Jim Carrey cannot say no to anything. He's a great example in that movie of being able to get into a state of possibility. Sometimes you have to put yourself into some spontaneous things that are outside of your comfort box so that you can grow, so that you can see what else is there for you in this life. Okay, time for us to close up for the day. Anybody that did join, anybody have any questions? If you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and raise your hand, put anything in the chat. Okay, if you did not get your question answered this time, feel free to put it back in your group session form for next week. Otherwise, I still keep all of them so that as more people are asking the same thing, we can kind of put a training together that relates to people. Ask your coaches. Let's see, anything else that we can let you know? Okay, come in and take a look at the things to have in your medicine cabinet. Take a look at that book if that appeals to you. Thank you so much for completing your forms. We will see you next week. Same time, same place. Thanks, everybody.